The Galactic Council had witnessed many peculiarities in their thousand-year reign across the stars, but nothing quite prepared them for the reports coming from Earth's monitoring station on Kepler 442b. Commander Zexhai, a towering Veltaran, with crystalline skin that shifted between deep purples and blues, stood before the massive holographic display in the observation deck. The data streams painted a picture that defied every xenobiological protocol they had established for newly contacted species. "Show me the footage again," Zexhai commanded, his forearms crossed in contemplation. The hologram flickered, displaying the surface of the human colony world. The settlement was modest. Prefabricated shelters arranged in neat rows, surrounded by the typical defensive barriers that most species erected when establishing footholds on foreign worlds. What made this colony unusual wasn't its structure, but what had happened 3 rotations ago. Dr. Kirathes, the Council's lead xenobiologist, manipulated the display with her tentacled appendages. The indigenous pack predators, the colonists, call them wolves, had established a den approximately 2 kilometers from the human settlement. Standard territorial behavior, really. Most species would either eliminate the threat or relocate entirely. "But humans are not most species," Zexhai murmured, having read enough reports about these peculiar bipeds to know their patterns defied logic. The footage showed a female wolf, massive and silver-furred, pacing frantically around her den. Her distress calls echoed across the barren landscape, a haunting sound that seemed to pierce through the recording equipment itself. The mother returned from a hunting expedition to find her offspring missing, Dr. Kirathes continued. 3 pups, barely old enough to survive without constant care. Based on our behavioral analysis, she should have either died defending them or gone into a rage-induced hunting frenzy. Instead, she did something unprecedented. She approached the human settlement. The display shifted to show the massive predator sitting just outside the human defensive perimeter, her head tilted back in what could only be described as a pleading howl. What happened next would later be classified as a Category 5 impossible event in the Council's xenological archives. The humans emerged from their shelter, not in combat gear, not wielding weapons, but carrying small bundles in their arms. The lead human, a female with graying hair and weathered features, approached the wolf slowly, speaking in the soft, melodic tones that seemed characteristic of their species. "Audio enhancement, please," Zexhai requested. There, Big Mama. We found your babies near the ravine. Looks like they wandered off and got themselves stuck." The wolf's response was immediate and shocking. Instead of attacking the potential threat to her offspring, she lowered her massive head and allowed the human to approach. The woman gently placed the first pup on the ground, and the tiny creature immediately stumbled toward its mother. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Kirathes. "No predator species would allow another sapient near their young. The territorial instincts alone should have triggered a violent response." But the humans weren't finished. The second colonist, a young male, knelt down and carefully examined the second pup. "This one's got a cut on his leg. Nothing serious, but let me clean it up." The wolf watched, motionless, as the human tended to her injured offspring with the same care they might show their own young. The third human, an elderly male with kind eyes, bottle-fed the smallest pup, which had apparently been too weak to nurse properly. "They're not just returning the offspring," Zexhai observed, his crystalline skin now shifting to confused patterns of green and gold. "They're providing medical care." "It gets worse," Dr. Kirathes said, advancing the footage. "Watch what..." happens next. The humans had set up a small shelter near the wolf's den, not close enough to intrude, but positioned where they could monitor the family. Over the following days, they brought food, medical supplies, and even toys for the pups to play with. The mother wolf, rather than driving them away, began to trust them completely. Sir, the station's communication officer, a nervous Picklon, whose scales rattled with anxiety, approached the command platform. "We're receiving a transmission from the colony. The humans they're requesting official contact with us." "On what grounds?" "They want to discuss establishing a wildlife preservation protocol. Apparently, they've discovered 17 different species on this world that they consider endangered and want our help setting up protected habitats." HFY's skin went completely transparent, a sign of utter bewilderment among his species. "They want to protect the predators that could kill them?" "Not just predators, sir. Everything. The humans have cataloged every species on this world and determined that their presence might disrupt local ecosystems. They're requesting permission to modify their settlement plans to minimize environmental impact." Dr. Kirithes pulled up additional data streams. "Commander, I've been analyzing similar reports from other human colonies across 17 worlds. The pattern is consistent. Wherever humans establish settlements, local wildlife populations stabilize or increase. They actively nurture and protect species that pose direct threats to their survival." "But why?" HFY demanded. "What evolutionary advantage could this possibly serve?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The communication officer had patched through a direct transmission from the colony's leader, Dr. Sarah Chen, a small human woman with bright, intelligent eyes. "Council representatives," her voice carried warmly through the ship's speakers. "We understand you've been observing our interactions with the local wildlife. We'd like to invite you down for dinner to discuss it properly. We've learned so much from these beautiful creatures, and we think you would too." She paused. And in the background they could see the massive silver wolf lying peacefully beside a human child, both napping in the afternoon sun. "You see, we've discovered something wonderful about this universe. It's not about the strong consuming, the weak or the smart dominating the simple. It's about family, and family means no one gets left behind." Commander HFY stared at the display for a long moment, his skin cycling through colors that had no name in any galactic language. "Set course for the surface," he finally commanded. "And prepare a diplomatic gift, something appropriate for a species that adopts the children of apex predators." As their ship descended toward the human colony, HFY wondered if the Council would need to revise their definition of apex predator entirely. Perhaps in this strange universe, the most dangerous species wasn't the one with the sharpest claws or strongest bite. Perhaps it was the one that chose love over fear every single time.